This morning, typical call. So we are going to hear about the mentoring scheme that has been running across the CACN, the Colour Arts and Culture Network, has helped support, pay for, and create under the guise and auspices of Chris Bridgman. And we've got a couple of mentors and a couple of mentees on the call as well. So we're just going to explore, actually, is mentoring a good idea? Does it do any good? What have people benefited from doing it? Should we do some more, etc., etc. So whether you've ever had a mentor in any aspect of your life, be it work or play, up until now, I think you'll find that conversation of interest, and do feel free to chip in with your own thoughts as well. And then we're going to cross to Rosehill, that beautiful theatre just outside Whitehaven, where there's a fantastic new exhibition opening next month called Sekers Objects. We're going to hear from the people that behind that handpicked productions and the people that have pulled that together. It's a really well thought through and thorough and long in the planning exhibition. I know you did brilliantly to get some money from the Heritage Lottery Fund to help make it happen. That opens on the 2nd of February. It's free, and I really recommend it to you. We're going to hear about what it's all about, see a little film, and also the wraparound part of that exhibition as well, which I'm just looking at a flyer, looks fascinating. So if you like your Seckers, or if you like just how community arts projects can come together, again, I commend that to you. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to find out about. Um, Without further ado, then, let's cross to Chris Bridgman, who, of course, is one of the people that helps run the Cumbria Arts and Culture Network. Chris has been the brains behind the mentoring that's been going on over the last, well, couple of years, really, and the most recent tranche in particular. It's what we're going to focus in on this morning. So, Chris, over to you to tell us a bit more about that. And I think we've got one or two slides to see, and then we're going to hear from a few more voices too.
Yes, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be joined by two of the mentors and two of the mentees from the 2024 cohort, and we'll hear interesting things from them shortly. But I am just going to give you a bit of an overview of the process. For those of a sensitive artistic nature, which I'm sure is everybody here, I apologize for the crap level of graphic design on this slideshow. Yeah, we started doing mentoring last in 2023, had the first round, very much benefiting from the learning, insights, expertise of Braithwaite Trust, which had also run a mentoring program before that. And they kind of facilitated the induction process for us then. In 2023, if we go on to the next slide, Amy, thanks. In 2023, we put a call out for mentees and then tried to find mentors that were suitable for them. This year, or 2024, we did it the other way around, put a call out for people who were willing and able and felt they had appropriate experience and expertise to be mentors, and then had a squad of mentors to offer out. So then put out a call for people to apply to be mentees and to bid for the mentor or mentors that they thought would be most appropriate out of that. So then went through a process of matching. There's a finite number. There is a cost attached because we pay the mentors a modest sum for their time and pay people's traveling expenses. And there's also meetings of everybody which require a bit of resource. So there's a finite number, 6 pairings each year we've done. And having paired people up, we had an induction meeting at the back end of April where almost everybody got together, and we shared our ideas about what mentoring could be. So it's a process of clarifying everybody's expectations, hopes, setting boundaries to a certain extent. We go on to the next slide. These are some of the sheets that we came up with, people contributing ideas about what mentoring is, encouraging, reflection, challenging. Next slide, please. And some of the same ideas, but some different as well. Dynamic, can change. And certainly I think people's processes changed through the course of the mentoring. And also, next slide, we thought about what mentoring should not be, not prescriptive, and it's not therapy, although hopefully it was therapeutic in some ways for all concerned. Next slide, please. And as you can see, we had a very high quality cohort who identified that mentoring is not an elephant. Um, and it is not going to fix everything, but hopefully it fixed several things. Um, we were really concerned to make sure that everybody kind of knew what the deal was, because yes, if you say mentoring, people may not know what it is or may have different ideas about how it functions. So I think it was really important to clarify exactly what could and could not be expected from the whole process. And we then contracted the mentors and had letters of agreement that set out exactly what we thought was going to be happening. And I think everybody was quite comfortable with that. And so then the pairs went off and arranged how they were going to operate, roughly to meet once every month for about 6 months. Inevitably, everybody's lives are different, and this happened in different ways. And we'll learn about some of that in a minute. If we go on to the next slide, I'll just show you the whole squad. So Amanda, Drago, and Zoe Gadd, who are not here this morning, they are both dance practitioners. Alison Critchlow, who many people might know from these calls, and Thomas Beecham seems to have no internet presence, so I wasn't able to scrape his image off anywhere, but that is one of his artworks, lovely sculpture. So they are both visual artists. Lucy, who is with us today, and Matt Sowerby are writers, primarily poets. And if we go on to the next slide, we have Imogen, who's with us today, who is a theatre maker, and she was mentored by Dave Camlin, who's primarily a musician, but also a magician in many ways. And Rob Fraser, who many people know, Somewhere Nowhere, Rob and Harriet, who's primarily a photographer and environmental artist, and Melissa, who's with us today, who is primarily a writer. And Stefan, probably familiar to a lot of people, theatre maker, audio artist, and general Renaissance man who worked with Julie Carter, who is a writer and emerging performer. Thanks very much, Amy. I think we can stop that visually distressing experience. And yeah, so Melissa has to leave us for other commitments fairly soon. So I'm just going to throw her in the deep end and ask you just if you'd been mentored before, what your expectations were, and what the actual experience was over the last year.
Yeah, so I hadn't been mentored before, and came at it. Obviously, I chose or applied to be with Rob, and I did have a little bit of a relationship with Rob already because I've been on a residency and things with him. So we kind of started with a little foundation, which was actually really valuable. I came at it really openly, like without expectations, and without a sort of set, okay, this is what I want to achieve or anything like that. Um, all of that really kind of came from that first session, that introductory session. That's where I start, if like for me, it started to kind of take a bit of a shape, and I started to think about how this was going to be useful to me in a more structured way. I think we all kind of agreed. I know when I've spoken to other people about it, as such a key part of the experience, and I've said this to Chris, was the introduction session that we had, and then also having that closing session at the end. They were almost as valuable as the whole sort of mentoring program. So
Why was that?
so one thing was feeling part of something bigger, so feeling part of a bigger group, because it, like, I really feel like I didn't just get the benefit of Rob's mentoring, I got the benefit of all of the mentors and also the mentees to a certain extent. I feel like I learned a lot from, even from like Imogen and Matt and the mentees as well. Met some new people, but also connected with some people I already knew in a different way. So all of that was, I mean, I guess networking and connecting is what this is all about. So everyone here is going to appreciate that. But yeah, I think like if you do repeat it, I think it's really, really key that they're part of it.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll just say on that that my original intention was that we'd have a bit of a midway get together as well, which it didn't happen. In Rob Fraser's phrase, it's like herding ferrets. So getting 12 people together in one place or even virtually together at one time is quite challenging. But I think I am determined that if and I'm sure we will do it again, we've got the resources, that there is a midpoint meetup as well. I think that'd be really valuable.
Yeah. So something that we talked about quite a bit as well was this sort of cross-discipline thing, because some of the pairings were in the same discipline, some like Rob and I were crossed. And I found it really valuable being in a cross relationship, because it almost meant we put the practice aside and looked at other things, which can be really useful, because sometimes it's easier to find mentoring and peer support in your own discipline just on your own. And I went through the 6 months. I ended up having a project, an actual project that Rob helped me develop, and it was, for me, not just about, he's obviously really generous with his contacts and things, some people in this meeting here that I've spoken to about it, but also just giving the validation and the confidence because the idea, which I'm now like applying to Arts Council and stuff with, off the back of that, it came in just a throwaway comment. Oh, I've got this idea, but it's nothing. And if I hadn't done the mentoring scheme, that never would have become anything more. And then just the last thing I will say is Rob and I did a mix of walk and talks and Zoom calls when we had to, but mostly walk and talks. And the difference between those two doing them two different ways was massive. And in the walk and talks, we would end up like going off agenda and just like talking about random things. And that was actually where like the gold came from. Whereas over Zoom, it was like we both had an agenda, we had to get through it. And the little side conversations just didn't happen as much.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. That was kind of quite a nice segue, because I'm going to bring Lucy in now, who mentored Matt, and their relationship, I think I'm right in saying, was entirely done on screen, wasn't it? If you come off mute, Lucy.
Yeah, so due to circumstances, apart from the opening meeting, me and Matt met entirely via Zoom. Just because of circumstances, geography, I was traveling quite a lot. Matt is all over the place. So yeah, our sessions were, I think we did, it worked for us both. But it would have been really nice to have, yeah, some one-to-one sessions as well. I think, we did miss out a little bit on that. That said, so there were 6 sessions. I have mentored before. What was different about this, the mentoring for CACN, is that there was more of a sort of professional development element to it. So me and Matt looked at, so in our first session, we had to kind of brainstorm about what could be actually really useful during the process. And then the sessions kind of emerged fairly organically. So Matt would say what he was keen to explore, let's say a week or so before. But by the end, we'd actually kind of got through kind of all of them. And that was a mix of looking at his creative work. It was really nice. Actually, our final session was entirely on creative work. So that was nice. But also Matt is going to be incredibly successful writer who is at the stage, he's sure he won't mind me saying he's 23, and is at that stage of setting out in a freelance career. He's very committed. It was really nice. My own interest and Matt's mapped really well onto each other. We're both, as well as being really, as well as being writers, both have strong environmental commitments. So it was really nice to work with him on that and to help support him through the process of setting out with a bit of a portfolio career. And that process of, I think, I don't know, I'm speaking for myself here, but I think it's probably fairly common, having almost taken on way too much from that fear of actually saying no to things. And as quite often the younger and newer to the professional world member in partnerships, actually giving him the backup to actually just to stand up for himself and say, to have his own boundaries and to make his way kind of in the world. And one of the things I was most pleased with by the end of our period of working together is that his work and writing situation looked an awful lot more balanced. So he actually had time for writing, and he'd managed his other work so that actually they could sit together, rather than him just saying out of panic and wanting to make it in the world, saying yes to everything.
Yeah, I think time and balance was a common theme across almost everybody. I know Melissa has to shoot off very shortly. Is there anything else you want to throw in before we let you go, Melissa?
No, I don't think so. I just want to say sorry that I can't stay for the whole meeting.
Glad you can be here, and yes, happy travels up to the frozen north shortly. I'm going to skip to Imogen next, and she, I think you had some concerns about your time availability to start off with, and things got kind of more complicated than you thought in the course of the months that the process carried on.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mentor was Dave Camlin. I was absolutely chuffed when sort of Chris got in touch and said, yes, Dave Camlin's going to be your mentor. So I've always really respected and admired what Dave Camlin does. So I was really excited, thinking, oh my goodness, this is such an opportunity. And then my summer got so busy that every time I turned up for a mentoring meeting, like my head was all over the place, or I was going from one thing to another. And I feel like I had this wonderful opportunity to, pick Dave's brain. And I didn't really at any point have the opportunity to fully engage with that, because I was just too busy and my head was all over the place. But that being said, like I have taken so much, even though I was scatterbrained and here, there, and everywhere, I've taken so much out of that process with Dave. Like it's really helped me to sort of advance my vision for Wayfarers Theatre. Like it's really cemented the ideas that I have just through talking through that with Dave. And Dave founded like Solfest and Soundwave, so he's used to setting up organizations. And I think a lot of the time
just explain.
Sorry.
So you are setting up a business kind of
yes,
formally.
So I've got 4 acres of land on the edge of Cockermouth, which I am in the process of trying to get set up as an outdoor arts venue, essentially, and trying to get set up as a CIC, which is a community interest company. So yeah, Dave was sort of we were looking at the land and looking at how we could, like what we could turn it into, basically, and looking at the process of setting up a board, which is something that I've found really, really terrifying. And yeah, Dave's just basically just very sort of reassuring. Because I think often I get quite anxious and I get quite stressed and I worry that I'm going to get things wrong. And I think my fear of worrying that I'm not going to get things right means that I just don't do them. And yeah, Dave sort of just gently nudged me along in sort of little supportive steps. And like I've made like mentally, I've made a lot of progress, even though physically, if you were to put it on paper, it doesn't look like a lot. Like I feel like if I look at where I was 6 months ago, I'm like somewhere completely different now. Like I feel a lot more confident in what I have to sort of take out into the world, if that makes any sense at all. So
absolutely. Excellent. Yes, and I think you have demonstrated that you even feel guilty about not doing the mentoring properly. So give yourself a break. Stefan, can I bring you in now? So you were involved in mentoring with the Braithwaite process before this, weren't you?
I was, yeah, and I realised I'd had a previous mentoring experience years ago. I'll do a CACN advert. I thought it was really well organised, Chris. So that contracting in, although I wasn't at the original session, but I did gather enough from contact with you and with Jules. I was mentoring Jules Carter. So I gathered enough about the philosophy and approach to appreciate how well put together it was. And I'd agree with what's been said about the value of those that connection with the other mentoring teams, and how brilliant it would be to have the midpoint meeting as well, I think. Yeah, I think between me and Jules, we appreciate, or she said she appreciated the fact that, a bit like a coaching relationship, it's getting off the hamster wheel and having time to reflect. And what Melissa was saying about the simple value of a walk and talk approach, there's a similar thing, which is, and maybe this chimes with what Melissa was saying before, so she's not here to say yes or no, by just saying something out loud, you know, sharing it with someone else, some notion or thought, that's sort of airing it is a good way of exploring something you're thinking about. And I think Jules several times observed that's what was happening just by sharing stuff. So sometimes I was just there to listen. It was as simple as that, in a very coachy way. And then it swung right through to very detailed practical help. I regarded mentoring as, I'm not necessarily an expert. I've just got more miles on the clock. And we were in the same discipline. I'm really interested in what people have said about working with people from other disciplines, because that's what I love about CACN. I adore having conversations with poets and potters and dancers, getting out of my theatre ghetto. But myself and Jules, we're both in it together as theatre practitioners. It just happens that although Jules is a very experienced person, ex-GP, experienced poet and writer, all-round extraordinary human being, so not a young person in that respect, she's a very new theatre maker. So she was asking fundamental questions about how you go about doing it that were brilliant for me, because I hadn't reflected or thought about those for some time. So I got two-way value out of that. Yeah.
Just explain that a bit more. What value did you get out of that?
Well, by being asked fundamental questions about practical questions for one thing, but then wider philosophical questions about how to go about it. It made me reflect on my own practice as well. Simple as that, really. Yeah.
Right. Was that also the case for you, Lucy? Did you feel that you got any benefit out of it?
Oh, massively. Yeah. I think working any kind of mentoring partnership which is successful, I learned things about writing. I learned things about, seeing where Matt was in terms of asking questions about my own process. I think the best mentoring sessions, are those where it very is mutual, and it's a conversation. I like Stefan's metaphor of having more miles on the clock, as it were. But otherwise it being a very democratic relationship.
Well, I think, Tom, if we throw the floor open, I don't know if there are people that want to ask questions of any of the participants or myself about how it's all gone, or any ideas, comments they want to throw in.
I think, hello Lorna, by the way, and hello Davey. This confidence thing, in the creative industries, in the cultural industries, in the artistic industries that we're all involved in, confidence is a really thing. It's a really difficult thing, I think, sometimes, to know whether to go with something, or to know whether to go with a feeling, and to have somebody kind of hold a mirror up in a coaching way or in a mentoring way, give you what's the word I'm looking for? Just think, give you the support of, that's a great idea. I think you should really run with that, or let's explore that further. That's fascinating. The throwaway comment that I think Melissa mentioned about an idea that came from a conversation, a mentoring conversation. I just think confidence is you can't buy it. You can't make it. It just has to happen. And a great way of making confidence happen is for someone to endorse your idea. And if mentoring helps to do that, that's a great outcome for mentoring.
Imogen, you just tell us where you're at and what the next steps are.
So I have 3 people that I've spoken to and would like to be on the board for Wayfarers Theatre. And we're going to meet up with Dave, actually, because we never had our last session. So that's been put on hold. So the 5 of us are going to meet up. And basically, sort of, I'm going to set out that vision of where I'd like to take Wayfarers Theatre. And then we're going to lump through the boring bits together, because just a bit of support to sort of get the sticky bit that I struggle with, which is the setup out the way. Because my brain doesn't enjoy anything paperwork related. I just want to dance around in the woods in a costume, really. Yeah. But no, it's good. It has been really good. Just still suffering from the busyness.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that I think for all of the pairings, there's no kind of hard end, although the formal sessions might have finished. I think the relationships continue. Al Critchlow and Thomas Beecham, I think, actually have one of their formal sessions still to do because the way their lives worked out, it's bled into this year. But yes, as I think formally or informally, people are going to maintain that contact. And we're also talking about everybody getting together again because everybody found that such a joyful and useful experience to compare notes and all that cross-disciplinary stuff that people have been talking about. So I think there will be a bit of a gathering somewhere, possibly for a walk and talk, and almost certainly for some cake at some point.
Chris, thank you. We had funding to make this happen. Are there any plans for future mentoring sessions or future mentoring schemes?
Well, certainly, as people may or may not know, we're at a point of applying for a bunch of funding to ensure CACN thrives and grows over the next 2 or 3 years. So we're waiting for the results of bids or still working on bids going in. But granted that we've got the resources, I think definitely there will be more mentoring processes, and I would trust they will continue to refine and improve. And but we've had feedback from everybody who took part this year, and I'm very pleased to say it's been extremely positive. There have been some ideas about tweaks and developments and reconfigurations, and the midway meet being a crucial thing that I'll ensure happened next time.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And if anybody wants to become potentially a mentor or potentially a mentee, or you might know somebody who might be a potential mentee in particular or a mentor, then watch this space. And Chris is very much the man that will make it happen. So as Chris says, if the funding comes through, real potential to do a bit more as well. I'm a huge believer in coaching and in mentoring. I think that one-on-one relationship is precious. So great to hear from those voices this morning. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. All right, well, here's a slight gear change. So since 2023, Handpicked Productions have been busy working on their National Lottery Heritage Fund funded project, Sekers Objects. And with help, they've looked under beds, peeked in sheds, and scoured mantelpieces, collecting objects that tell the stories of Sekers fabric. And if you don't know what that is, you're about to find out. The iconic design and fabric manufacturer that was the beating heart of the West Cumbrian community for so very long. This is ahead of a fantastic looking exhibition which opens on the 2nd of February. And I'm very pleased that Anne Timpson, the head honcho of Handpicked Productions, is with us this morning with a couple of colleagues to tell us the story of how it's come about and what the plan is for February. So Anne, we have a film lined up for when you're ready, but over to you to tell us your story.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and thanks for having us today. So, I'm one of 4 directors of Handpicked Productions, and we're based in Cleator, and our work spans performing arts, visual arts and heritage. And I think what we're really interested in is exploring intangible cultural heritage, which is rooted in place, and that's absolutely what Sekers Objects is about. And I think, Tom, you said before that there's been a lot of planning that's gone into this project before we get to the exhibition, and it's been a 2-year project. We're just coming to the end of it. It's heritage, a National Lottery Heritage funded project. And I think, although this project's been a 2-year project, it's really been a follow-on from a previous project that we worked on with my colleagues Janice and Debbie while we were based at Rosehill Theatre, which was called the Creative Connections Project. And that project explored Rosehill's creative connection to theatre design and fabric design, because Mickey Sekers, who created the Rosehill Theatre, was one of the founders of Sekers Fabrics in 1938. And so I think when we came to focus in the 2nd year of the Creative Connections project about Sekers Fabrics, what we found is lots of employees, ex-employees of Sekers Fabrics, and their family members came forward to talk to us about their stories. They shared their stories, they alluded to objects, or they brought items with them to show us. And at that point, we realised that there was more to this than even we thought possible. And I think that's where Sekers Objects came from, the fact that we wanted to have funding to explore further what people, the stories that people were telling us, the objects they were bringing forward, and being able to draw them together into a new collection of artefacts from the community. And these, in lots of ways, are ordinary objects, but their stories really show the influence and the legacy and the impact of Sekers Fabrics on that community. So I think if we show the film now, that will give people a little idea of what we've been up to. Okay. So as you can see, there's a lot in there. So we've spent 2 years. The first year we spent researching the project, revisiting communications with ex-employees, gathering all of these objects and items together. We have a really good relationship with Sekers Fabrics because it continues to exist today. It's based in Dundee. We've been up to see their archive. And we've again borrowed pieces from their archive, which will be in the exhibition. The videos giving you a sneak peek of some of the objects and items that will be there. And so also what we've done when we set out on this project, we knew there were things that we wanted to come out of it. So we knew we would have an exhibition. What we wanted to do was also have a book that sat along the exhibition, a book that focused in on some of the objects that are in the exhibition, and also a digital archive of all of the elements of it. So the stories and the objects that will be there for people to visit. And so we're opening that collection to the wider public, and also for it to be a resource that we can continue to add into. And so I just want to invite my colleague Ann-Carrid Saunders to talk about the book and her research that she's done. Ann-Carrid is sorry, Ann-Carrid, I'm struggling here a bit. So you're a social geographer and
Yes.
also a researcher and a writer. And so, yeah, Ann-Carrid, do you want to talk a bit about the book?
Yes, so I started working with Anne and Janice and Debbie back in 2018 on the previous project, and wrote a book about Rosehill Theatre, Mickey Sekers. And as Anne has said, there were so many sort of loose threads from that we just wanted to pull and tease out and explore a little bit more. And I suppose the book really started when we went up to Dundee to Sekers Fabrics and were made privy to their archive, which the managing director had sort of said, oh, we don't have much. And then we walked down into the basically the part of the factory where they send out all of their fabric, and there were 2 immense cardboard boxes filled with things which had been brought over from Whitehaven when the Sekers Fabric factory closed there in 2006. And we just started going through, and there were just so many amazing objects, photographs, ledger books, sample books. and it was just a treasure trove. And that's really where, for me, the writing started, because you began to identify objects and you thought, ooh, I wonder what the story behind this is. And I mean, just to give you one example, in that box we found a magazine, Home and Gardens magazine, which from 1959, and they'd done an interview with Mickey Sekers when he lived at his house at Rosehill, and they'd taken photographs of the interior, and there was this immense chandelier, which, when Mickey Sekers left, when he moved out of Rosehill House, moved into the theatre. And I just began to play with some of the stories, some of the people who'd walked under this chandelier, famous names, Princess Margaret, she'd spent a weekend at Rosehill House, some of the amazing performers who'd played at Rosehill Theatre, the family. And then the fact that this chandelier had hung at Rosehill Theatre. And there were just some lovely stories that sort of came out of that. To give you another example, lots of people came forward telling us about their wedding dresses, the fact that they'd made their wedding dresses from material that they'd bought in the factory shop, or that Mickey Sekers had gifted to them. And one person who'd actually been allowed to weave her own yarn, and that she was sewing herself into her wedding dress as she was making her way to the church, because she just hadn't quite had time to finish it. And we just became aware of so many lovely stories scattered around the region that the book has sort of pulled together. And it was delightful writing it, because it was just these very heartfelt stories. People had hung on to these objects. They meant so much to them. And I think they're giving them the opportunity to share those through the exhibition and through the book and through the amazing photography that we've had organised. I think it's just a stunning testament to Sekers Fabrics, but also to its importance within the community, and the fact that so many people we probably don't know yet who've got Sekers Fabrics in their home somewhere, or in their sheds, or under their beds.
Right, thanks, Anne-Harriet. And then another part of what we do, because obviously we want to share the work that we do with the local community, and I think this project wouldn't have happened without the local community coming forward and sharing things with us. And I'm going to ask Rachel Carroll, who is a researcher at the University of Teesside, to talk in a minute. But our relationship with Rachel was established through some training that Janice Murray and Anne-Harriet went on to, which was someone's going to have to help me because I've completely forgotten what the training was.
It was oral history training at the
Yes,
Library. That's right.
So Rachel, do you want to talk a little bit then about how you met with Janice and Anne-Harriet on that, and how that got us to sewing circles?
Yes, will do. Thank you very much for giving me some time to talk about this brilliant collaboration. And I'm thrilled to see one of the participants from the Sewing Circles workshops here, Barbara. So Barbara might want to testify as well to her experience. So yes, I'm joining you from Newcastle, but as Anna's mentioned, I work at the University of Teesside, which is in Middlesbrough. So I'm an associate professor there in English literature, and my own research centres on women's creative labour in the textile arts, crafts and industries, as it's depicted in women's writing. So as Anne has hinted, I first became aware of the Sekers Objects project through a very happy coincidence, which was that Anne-Harriet and Janice and I were all attending the same online oral history workshop. And as soon as I heard them in the little sort of introductions at the beginning talk about the work they were doing, I was really keen to explore ways that we could work together. And very fortunately for me, they felt the same. So we had a number of conversations with the whole team, Janice, Debbie, and Anne-Harriet. I came over from Newcastle to Whitehaven to visit them at Rosehill to have a look at the archive. And out of that emerged the Sekers Objects Sewing Circles project. And this is funded by Teesside University as part of our AHRC, Arts and Humanities Research Council Impact Acceleration Account Award. So this was a series of textile arts-based creative workshops designed and delivered by the brilliant Janice, who's sitting in splendour there in the Rosehill Theatre. The idea was to explore how making-based workshops could act as a vehicle for the sharing of skills and memories, so a different way of capturing memories. Participants included some former employees at Sekers Fabrics and also women refugees and asylum seekers, including from Afghanistan and Botswana, who were resident either in Whitehaven or the wider region. And I think there were two distinctive features of thinking behind the workshops and this particular focus. One is to do with the fact that women made up the majority of the workforce at Sekers Fabrics, and women in the wider community incorporated, as Anne Howard was saying, incorporated fabrics and textiles into their own home sewing and their homes. So we wanted to give voice and visibility to those women's experiences, which can be marginalised in heritage histories that focus on men's work. The other element is that the story of Sekers Fabrics is a story of migration. Sewing is arguably a universal language and one that doesn't require words to be shared. And we were keen to make sure that these heritage-related activities were inclusive of people whose relationship to the place might not reach back over generations. So my role in the workshops was as a participant observer. So what that meant was that I took part in the sewing circles. So I was working on my embroidery hoop along with everyone else. But after the workshops, I squirreled myself away to reflect and make notes. And I'm analysing this material at the moment, and I'll be sharing it with the team to try and capture some of the sort of qualities, the particular character of that experience. We held a celebration event at the end of the workshops, and as has been indicated, I think the work will also be on display as part of the exhibition. We had some very positive participant feedback. I'll just read out one comment from one of the participants. This is a quote from a feedback sheet. "I felt like I belonged to women's creative skills. They are so welcoming, engaging, and they make you feel like you're one of them." So the idea of belonging was really important. And just one other detail that was shared in the sort of feedback discussions is an observation that someone made, which was that they wouldn't have come to a talk about the history of Sekers Fabrics at Whitehaven, but they really enjoyed taking part in the workshop and hearing and sharing memories and experiences. So just to sum up, before I met the Sekers Objects team, I knew very little about Whitehaven and this part of Cumbria. And one of the most enjoyable parts of this collaboration has been learning more. And this is all down to just the incredible passion of the Handpicked Productions team. And I've found myself, I've now realised something you all know, which is that this is a place with a very distinctive character, but one that will also have resonance for other parts of the UK and beyond, particularly perhaps coastal communities, post-industrial communities. And I now find myself recounting the stories that Janice and Anne and Debbie and Anne Harrod have shared with me, crediting them always, but recounting those stories to my colleagues at Teesside, to other researchers at events, all in lots of different places. And I think these stories really deserve a wider audience, and I think there is an audience for them, and they would be fascinated to hear more about the very particular cultural and creative heritage and present and future of Whitehaven. Something you already know, but it was a revelation to me, a great pleasure to discover.
Thank you, Rachel. And Barbara, could I just call on you just to talk about your experience, if you want to, of sewing circles?
Yeah, that's fine. That's yeah. Um, it was. I mean, I was going to put a note about it. And it is, and it has been a really, really memorable time. We had a fabulous time. What was lovely for me is I am a stitcher, and a group of women sitting together stitching. I think it's a little bit like when Melissa was talking earlier on about walk and talk. Sitting stitching, again, you're doing some other activity, but you're free to talk. Listening to the stories, we had some fabulous people that had worked at Sekers. That was gorgeous. And then there were various items that you brought along. But it was just the chat, I think. And the chat went all over the place. We talked about all sorts of things. I have to say, it was lovely that it was all women. But I think also perhaps for this project was important because of just chat that goes a certain way if it's just a group of women. It was absolutely fabulous. I loved every second of it, and yeah, and I loved the piece that I produced as well. So we were stitching. If people don't know, the group I was working with, we had photographs of Sekers or of fashion design, and we had them in a hoop and we were embroidering over them. And I chose a piece of what's her name? Sorry, the 60s icon, female.
Twiggy.
Thank you. Thank you. So I had a Twiggy piece in that sort of fashion time. Love doing it. Love the whole thing. And yeah, fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. And so I suppose just to kind of go now to the exhibition, the exhibition, I think you said, Tom, will opens on the 2nd of February, runs until the 27th of February. It is only open, it isn't open on Mondays. I think that's right. If I've got that wrong, somebody tell me. And we have a programme of activity during the month. So kind of when we were doing sewing circles, the group really wanted more. And so what we've programmed is some films. All of the films all have a connection to Sekers. So we have on Sunday afternoons film. We've got My Fair Lady. We have the Inn of the Sixth Happiness. We have the Red Shoes. The connection to Sekers is that all of the costumes were made using Sekers fabrics. And those screenings on a Sunday afternoon will be are a sewing circles screening. So we're inviting people to come along with their craft activities and watch the film and make and do as they're watching the film. And we also have a screening on a Friday evening. Sorry, I haven't got all the dates in my head, but we have got an image, I think, somewhere that we can show people and we can share as well. On a Friday evening, With Nail and I will be filmed. And the connection there is Uncle Monty's house. If you know With Nail and I, Uncle Monty's house, the filming was in Bernard Neville's house. Bernard Neville designed the English Country Collection for Sekers, and that is on the it was a furnishings collection, and that is on the furniture in Bernard Neville's house when that film was filmed. And we also have fabric sales, which will take place on a Saturday afternoon at the theatre. Sekers Fabrics in Dundee have gifted us rolls of fabrics, which we will sell at £1 a metre is what we're going to sell them at. So tell all of your friends that there will be fabric sales. Anyone that's interested, please do come along. I think we have during February half term, Janice will be delivering a Some Art to Do, one of our family workshops as well. And then I think the other thing I just wanted to mention, which isn't on the programme list that we've got, is that Mill Girl, which is a play by Rachel Price, we will be holding a scratch performance of Mill Girl on Saturday the 8th of February, again at Rosehill, and we will share details of that. But I just wanted to flag that up while we were on the call. Have I missed anything?
It's not just any old Rachel Price, is it? It's our very own Rachel Price.
It is our very own Rachel Price, yeah.
Yeah. I think I've got the flyer in front of me, Anne, so I can confirm that you've got all your information right that you've just read out. I love the connection with Nail and I and Uncle Monty's house. And I love all the stuff that you're doing, a sort of wraparound to the exhibition itself. It looks fantastic. Ian, if you're still there, how come you've got a bit of Sekers material? Is he still there? There he is. Come off mute, Ian. Tell us your story.
Well, because I lived just down the road from where the factory was, for one thing, and so it was quite easy to go up and buy stuff. And my mother basically bought stuff for curtains that never got made, etc. So I've got, and going to cover the furniture, but never quite got there. So I've got various bits and pieces.
How nice. How lovely. And by the way, I've been to Barbara's house and I can confirm she is a stitcher. I love the fact that it would say on your passport, Barbara, stitcher, professional stitcher. And I've seen some of the beautiful things that she's made for her grandchildren, I think, all the bits I saw, beautiful stuff. So what a nice thing to do. And I love the fact that, Rosehill is doing this and totally embracing it. It's free. The exhibition is free. Jen, we've got Jen Garrett on the call. Jen, you're one of the bosses of Rosehill. This is a great thing that Rosehill's doing and a sort of step in a slightly new direction, all the community stuff, etc., isn't it?
Yeah, we love doing slightly unexpected things like this, putting on an exhibition. Obviously, we had a slightly mad exhibition last year, very different in tone to this one, but it's such a lovely way of transforming the sort of the venue space that we have and having people have an opportunity to explore it in a different way and learn a bit about the amazing history of this place. And yeah, it's been such a lovely opportunity to work with the Handpicked Productions team. They have done such a lot of work, and we just can't wait to see it all come to fruition now, really.
Excellent. All right, so get yourselves down to Rosehill in February 2nd to the 7th. Open every day apart from Monday, 11 till 4. And I think you're in for a bit of a treat. And those screenings as well. Presumably you don't have to be sewing at the same time to watch those films, but it helps if you do. But you don't have to be. I probably wouldn't be, but I'd be enjoying the films. Sounds great. So congratulations on years of work to pull that together. I hope it's a huge success for you all. It's 26 minutes past 10. Just before we finish, Amy has just dropped me a note to say there's quite a few opportunities and jobs on the CACN website at the moment. Amy, tell us a bit more.
Yes, it's just to remind everybody that the CACN website has opportunities, creative opportunities from around Cumbria. So that could be jobs, creative jobs, it could be artist residencies, artist commissions. And I think possibly because it's January and everybody's getting new projects going or new funding, our website is really teeming and packed with opportunities. And it's sort of everything from entry-level opportunities. So at the moment we've got like museum assistant with Hawkshead Grammar School, everything from sort of that level and volunteer level up to head of marketing and communications at Theatre by the Lake. So it really is every single level. So if you know somebody that's looking for either artist opportunities or jobs, just remember to forward them the website. It gets updated every week.
Yeah.
Also sign up to the newsletter because they're always in the newsletter every week. But just in the space of sort of yesterday, I've just been counting up the emails this morning. I think there's about 7 new opportunities just from sort of Wednesday to now to go on the website. So that's what I'm going to be busy with today.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Stefan asks you to Anne, will the Sekers work go elsewhere after, maybe Dundee or other places with histories of textiles? What's the plan? Is there a plan?
We have discussed that, but we haven't materialised with any of that yet. So it would be lovely for it to go somewhere else, but that isn't part of our thinking at this moment in time. But we're quite interested in the textile biennial, the Lancashire Textile Biennial, and possibilities and connections that we might be able to make with them. So we're doing a lot of thinking around things that we haven't been able to include in this project, or I suppose kind of new things that have come up as we've been researching, we've been talking to people, and what the possibilities are for the future. Yeah.
Excellent. Good question, Stefan. Thank you. Thank you, Anne. All right. Well, thank you so much to Chris, to Stefan, to Lucy, to Imogen, to Melissa, to Anne, to Angarad, and to Rachel for telling us all the stuff that's going on and all your stories about mentoring, being a mentee, and the fantastic sounding Sekers exhibition at Rosehill in February. Next week, we're going to on the slipway so far is a bit of an explanation about the UK SPF funding that CACN has benefited from and trying to help people improve their business skills when it comes to arts and culture. Some reflections on that. But I suspect a couple of other things will come my way before Friday as well, which I shall fix up for Friday too. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time this morning. Lovely to see you all. Have a great weekend. It looks set fair here in Carlisle. I hope it is where you are. and hope to catch you again sometime soon, if not next Friday morning, same time, same place. Cheers, everybody.